Why don't you start by telling us your story? So, how did you develop this passion for personal growth and manifesting?
About a decade ago, I was in quite a different place in my life. I had to have a total 180 to get to where I am today. Every single area in my life was not going well. So, mentally, I was incredibly depressed back in my late teenage years, early 20s. I was doing a lot of drugs, going out and partying a lot. I had a bad eating disorder. I really dealt with very low self confidence. I hated myself. And I really think back to that time in my life and I don't recognize that person because I felt like a shell of a human. It was for most of my teenage years. And of course, everyone goes through hard things a lot of the time in their teenage years. But for some reason, I felt like I really went through it and dealt with some very dark things. And I found personal development at a time where I needed it most. And it changed my life. And back then, personal development wasn't cool like it is now. I had to go to the library and find random books with like old white guys on the cover with their thumbs up. Like it was just
Totally.
kind of cringe. But for some reason, I just had this magnetic pull to go read a book. And I was at a time in my life where nothing was going right. I was very broke and I wanted to create a business for myself. I was very unhappy and I wanted to gain confidence and I didn't like how I looked. And I just had this very terrible like world that I was living in internally every day. So fast forward, I started, dipping my toe in, getting into personal development and reading all the books I could, listening to all the seminars I could online. I started really changing my life with these basic principles of personal development, principles like take 100% responsibility for your life. Principles like you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with most. Principles like rejection is redirection and you need to visualize your future and you can create this life of your dreams. So I really just, I think, needed to hear those things at that time. And it just put me down this really positive path. And the more that I did this quote work, the better I felt. But the growth was happening still pretty slowly. And I was suddenly my future self. It was years and years of learning what works and what doesn't. And also just like creating this curiosity about this type of work, like allowed me to really learn about why it worked and why visualization rewired your mind and how, retraining your subconscious with subliminal messaging actually worked and what transformation actually looked like because it's messy, and a lot of people think it's really hard and really complicated and they see this vision of their future as so far away. And that was me at the time. So I was trying to do it all and I was doing what all these professionals were telling me to do. And the one thing that I couldn't really stick to though was traditional meditation. I tried to do it and I really it was one of those things on my list every day that I always had unticked and I would just like avoid it for some reason. And I just felt like it was designed to calm me down, but all I wanted was to feel energized and reinvigorated towards my goals. I wanted to have something that gave me this like energy, this passion, this like intensity. I wanted something to make me feel like I'm moving towards this big life. And I felt like meditation was good and it was great to clear my mind, but I didn't want that. I wanted to radically transform. So around that time, I remember I had moved to London. I'm from Canada and I moved to London. I was working 4 jobs like to try to make ends meet while I was my original business, my online magazine. I was trying to get that up and going. So I was working at a juice bar, nannying, interning at this styling agency, dog walking. Like I was doing all the things to make money. And I remember at that time, I was trying to meditate and I thought, you know what? Why don't I just try something else? Why don't I take out my phone and go to the voice memos app? And why don't I just record something that I'm looking for that I can't find with meditation? And that was a visualization of my future life, these affirmations weaved in. And then I added this music that made me feel the way that my future self felt. I've always been very interested in the power of music. And anyway, so I created the original activation back then.
How long ago was this, by the way?
Yeah, this was about 8 years ago.
Okay.
I didn't really think much of it. It was an intuition. So I created these audios. I didn't even know what to call them. And I would just listen to them, not seated with my eyes closed. I would listen to them while doing everyday activities, while I was making breakfast in the morning, going on public transport to go to one of my jobs, going to the gym. It just was one of those things I'd listen to kind of like a podcast or music. And I had to create dozens of them because I'd get bored of them really quickly. And then I wanted to find new music for it. And I just always wanted different ones. So I just created this like library for myself. And fast forward a few years, my life changed very quickly. So from when I started listening to these activations, it was like a bell curve of growth. At first, the growth happened very slowly. And then I kind of just stopped doing a lot of other things. I stopped doing the vision boards. I stopped, necessarily doing all the morning routines every single morning diligently. I kind of just started listening to these activations as my most consistent part of my routine. And it was this bell curve of growth. Within a few years, I started making more money than I could ever imagine. I started healing myself of all these things that I had been going through. And I started to feel more confident. I've changed how I look. Like things have really changed in every way, shape, or form. I healed my eating binge and purge habit. And I finally have stepped into a body I love and I eat whatever I want. And I never think about food. Like all these things I used to think, wow, I hate people like that. I wish I had that. I've created this dream life for myself where every single thing is working. And it really has come down to these activations. And I had to do a ton of research on why this specific type of audio made such a big impact on my life and now tens of thousands of other people's lives with my app. And we can talk about that later in the episode. But that's my story. My life transformed with this. And now I've dedicated the rest of my life to telling people about how it actually doesn't need to be that complicated to transform your life. It doesn't need to be that hard to transform your life. All you need to do is create a new self-image of your future self and then become them in everyday moments. Activations are just a tool you can use to help you become that version of you. But you know what? You can do it yourself too with your mind. You just need to be the energy of your future self with your eyes open. When you're walking the dog, when you're at the grocery store, you need to slowly but surely embody this energy of your future self. So yeah, that's my story. And I'm now living in the Bahamas with a fiance and a dog, and I have a business and I earn more money than I honestly could have ever imagined. And I have completely transformed my life in every way.
Yeah, amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I can totally relate as well because, like, a decade ago, I was also going through like the most difficult time in my life, and then also finding those books by those like white men. Like just like personal development was not mainstream, and it was like really weird to be young and reading those books, or at least it felt like it at that time. It was not catered to people our age. So I totally relate to your story, but I love that you found that medium that worked for you. And I also understand like so much of it is like energy design, like designing your mindset, like manifesting. And so I'm so happy to see how it unfolded for you and how your life transformed just by getting your energy right. So tell us a little bit more about the transformation, because I know when you put it that way, the listeners are like, oh, it sounds so easy. But I'm sure it still wasn't like, easy, quick transformation. Like at what point did you start your blog or your business, and at what moment did it click that this was the idea for like your big business? Like walk us through that side.
Yeah, my online magazine blog back when I was like 19, 20 was definitely never earned a penny.
Was that also personal development?
Yeah, actually, when I first started, it was a bit of fashion, a bit of personal development, a bit of health. It was kind of all my interests, and then it really just evolved. But yeah, I have to say, I'm glad you brought this up because, of course, when I give the elevator pitch of my transformation, it's like, oh, okay, easy for you to say, But the reality is that yes, it was so much work. It was so much transformation, so much failing, so many long nights of me just working so hard towards my dreams and being like, why hasn't it happened yet? But what I've noticed looking back, because with hindsight, you gain wisdom, it's so messy in the middle and then it gets so clear after you've come out of it. when I really boil it down to what it was that helped me get to where I wanted to be, it was all about my feelings and energy and self image. Those are the two things that I relentlessly worked on for so many years. And the more I did it, it's like the universe would give me these little gifts, these little rewards showing me you're on the right path, keep going. I'd get so close with a business. I had many different businesses before I started activations, and they failed. Like I have had epic failures that I can talk about. I've been on the brink of success so many times. And I knew every time that thing failed, I was like, all right, I'm getting closer. I know that I'm getting closer because you're never going to win on your first go. Like it's very rare to have
Yeah.
your first big thing and not and never fail. Like you have to go through that. So I believed in myself. Well, I developed a belief in myself, I'll say, because back in the day I was a total victim before I found personal development. I was like, woe is me. Oh, I came from a poor family. Nope, I can't do this. Nope, so I really just created this belief in myself that was so strong. And I knew that it was part of my self image. I was already the personality of a millionaire making, $500,000 a month before I ever got there. Like I became that version of me before it ever materialized. So that was the interesting thing. Like I actually am such an example of this work because I believed that it could happen. I had such faith that this was the direction my life was going. And not because I'm special, because I selected that reality for myself, because I was aligning my energy with this reality every single day. And it wasn't perfect. In my whole journey of transformation, I've never had one perfect day where I woke up at 5 a.m., did a morning routine, did an activation, never procrastinated, ate organic all day, had no screen time. I've never had one perfect day, like ever. So, this is the other thing that I wish I could go tell my younger self. First of all, no one has ever had a perfect day in their life. And second of all, you can get there without ever having perfection. All that matters is a quick bounce back rate. The rate at which you bounce back after you've fallen off track. If you've done something that's not aligned with your future self image, the person that you want to be, if you just let it go quickly and get back on the bandwagon, the faster you do that, the quicker your bounce back rate, the more likely you're going to be successful. So I had to realize that young. And over the years, my bounce back rate has shortened and shortened to now it's honestly mostly a few seconds. I'll get a bad thought or I'll look in the mirror and I'll maybe have some self consciousness or I'll, eat something really unhealthy when my self image is of someone that likes health, or I'll do something and I'm like, okay, no big deal. I don't worry about it. I don't wait till Monday. I don't over exaggerate what happened. I'm like, okay, let's get back to it. I know who I am. I know who I want, how I want to feel. So that's, I think, the biggest trick. But absolutely, Aileen, it was not an easy journey, but the tools don't need to be complicated. I really think that when you know what to do, it can become effortless once you become the self image of your future self. That's when it becomes effortless. But the whole work is getting yourself there. And you have to fall off track and get back on many, many times.